The wind tore across the valley, rattling the old wooden shutters of Ronan's farmhouse. Rain pounded the roof like heavy stones, and lightning split the sky, briefly turning the world into blinding white. Ronan's hands were raw and slick as he tied down the last of the livestock pens, his boots slipping in the mud. The storm had arrived faster than the weather maps predicted, and it wasn't giving any mercy. A low, panicked cry cut through the roar of the wind. Ronan froze. He had heard thousands of animals in his life, but this voice, it was different. There was a desperation, a pleading in it that didn't belong to a sheep or a calf. He grabbed a lantern and raced toward the barn, water soaking through his coat. Another cry came higher and sharper. It made his stomach twist. Ronan's heart beat faster, not from fear but from instinct. Someone, or something, needed him. The barn doors shuddered as he pulled them open. A rush of icy wind hit him and he stumbled inside. His eyes adjusted to the dim glow of the lantern. At first he saw nothing unusual, just hay scattered by the storm. Then he noticed the faint shimmer near the back corner. A small creature crouched among the bales, no larger than a dog but unlike anything Ronan had ever seen. Its scales glimmered faintly silver and blue, and wet rain dripped from its tiny horns. Its eyes, golden intelligent eyes, locked onto his. It hissed softly, shaking with cold and fear. Ronan took a cautious step forward. "Hey, it's okay. I won't hurt you," he said, voice steady despite the storm hammering around them. The creature's tail lashed. The barn creaked, and for a moment Ronan imagined it might strike him. He froze, measuring the risk. Then the barn door slammed open with a violent gust, sending lantern light spinning across the walls. The creature squealed, pressed itself into a bale and glowed brighter in panic. Ronan lunged, grabbing it before it could escape or be swept into the wind. Cold water dripped from its scales, soaking his sleeves. "Got you," he whispered. He wrapped his coat around the tiny body. It trembled violently, and he could feel a rapid heartbeat against his chest. His fingers brushed the shimmering skin. It was warm, alive. Something about its pulse told him it was not just an animal, it was smart, aware, maybe even frightened for reasons beyond instinct. Lightning struck nearby, rattling the barn. The creature let out a small roar, startling Ronan, but then it pressed closer as if testing trust. He felt an odd connection, something raw and urgent. He had never seen anything like it, and yet he knew that in this storm he had to protect it. Outside, the wind tore at the roof. A shadow moved across the mud beyond the barn, a large, dark shape that didn't belong to any normal animal. Ronan stiffened. The creature hissed again, this time more warning than fear. He peered through the gaps in the boards. Another shape moved behind it, then another, vast forms twisting in the flashes of lightning. He could not see clearly, but they were too big to be anything familiar. Ronan's mind raced. If these things were hunting the creature, he had no time to hesitate. He grabbed a length of rope, securing the barn doors as best he could, and piled extra hay along the gaps to block the wind and whatever else might get through. The small dragon hissed at him again, then slowly curled into the warmth of his coat. Ronan felt a surge of responsibility, sharper than any fear. This small life depended entirely on him. He knelt, checking the creature. Its eyes met his, wide and luminous. A tiny spark of understanding passed between them, and he realized it wasn't just scared of the storm, it was scared of being alone, of the world outside the barn. Ronan pressed a hand to its head. "You're safe now. I'll keep you safe." A flash of lightning illuminated the valley again, and in that brief brightness, Ronan caught sight of movement beyond the fence. Something was moving fast across the fields, something with wings wider than a house, glinting metal under the rain. His stomach clenched. Whatever had sent this little creature to him was bigger, and far more dangerous than he imagined. The dragon child shivered in his arms, glowing faintly, almost like it knew danger was near. Ronan's jaw tightened. He could feel the impossible odds pressing down on him, but he also felt something else, clarity. He could fight, adapt, survive. He could protect it. The storm roared louder, the barn groaning under its force. And then, above the wind, a deep, resonant sound cut through the air. Not a roar. Not a cry. Something else. Mechanical, alien, impossible. The creature stiffened, and its scales pulsed like warning lights. Ronan looked up. A shadow fell across the barn wall. Something enormous had landed in the mud outside. Its eyes, or what he thought were eyes, glimmered in the dark. The dragon child hissed violently, claws gripping his coat. Ronan gripped it tighter. His mind raced, calculating, deciding. He had no weapons, no backup, only his courage and wits. But he also had this fragile, glowing creature depending entirely on him. He inhaled, steadying himself, and stepped toward the door. Whatever was out there, he would face it. Because he was human, and humans did not give up. And then lightning struck closer than before, illuminating a figure at the edge of the barn. Something that was not quite dragon, not quite machine watching them. Ronan froze. The creature's scales flared. The storm seemed to pause for a heartbeat. And in that suspended moment, the world shifted. Something had arrived. And it was waiting. The storm had not let up. Rain still hammered the roof and walls of Ronan's barn, turning the mud outside into a thick, sucking mess. His heart was still racing from the shadow he had glimpsed through the lightning, something massive, alien, impossible. The dragon child squirmed in his arms, tiny claws gripping the soaked fabric of his coat. Its golden eyes were wide, scanning every corner, every shadow. Ronan backed away from the door, shoving a stack of hay against the gaps to block the wind and anything else that might get inside. The creature hissed once, a soft, warning note, then pressed closer to his chest. Its warmth was comforting, but the glow from its scales flickered in response to something outside. Whatever it was alive, moving, aware. And it was not friendly. A loud crash made Ronan whip his head toward the loft. Part of the old roof had loosened, and a beam sagged dangerously, threatening to fall. He ran and jammed the beam with a barrel just as it creaked and groaned, narrowly avoiding a heavy collapse. His lungs burned. Every second, the storm tore at him, at the barn, at the fragile safety of the creature he held. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the yard. Ronan froze. Shapes moved in the mud. Large, dark silhouettes with wings that spread wider than any bird he had ever seen. They were not birds. They were hunters, mechanical, scaled, terrifyingly fast. Their eyes glimmered like yellow lamps in the darkness. The dragon child stiffened in his arms, its scales glowing brighter, pulsing rhythmically. Ronan understood. It was trying to communicate fear, danger. The wind howled and the barn shuddered. Ronan needed a plan. He could not fight creatures like these head-on. But he could use his knowledge of the land, his experience as a farmer. He grabbed a rope and looped it across the main support beam, ready to create a trip line or trigger if the barn door was forced open. Every action he took had to count. One mistake could cost both him and the dragon child their lives. The first creature lunged toward the barn. Its wings scraped the mud, sending dirt and water flying. Ronan yanked the rope. A hay bale toppled, hitting the creature's leg. It hissed, retreating a step, and Ronan felt a small surge of victory. The creature in his arms gave a low, relieved chirp. He smiled briefly, heart hammering. It was tiny, but it mattered. He had bought himself time. The storm did not care about time. Wind drove rain into the gaps, soaking him and the dragon child. The barn smelled of wet hay and mud. Lightning revealed movement again. Another hunter, larger, with armor-like scales and glinting claws, circling the barn. Ronan ducked behind a stack of crates, trying to think. He needed a distraction, something to give them a chance. He grabbed a lantern and threw it toward the opposite side of the barn. Flames roared to life as it hit the hay, smoke curling into the stormy night. The creature outside flinched, then hesitated. Another small victory. The dragon child chirped again, this time a sound that almost felt like encouragement. Ronan's chest swelled with something fierce and human, defiance, courage, hope. He would not let these creatures take the child. Not while he still drew breath. Suddenly the barn door shook violently. Rain and mud splashed inside as one of the hunters tried to force its way in. The dragon child hissed, claws scraping Ronan's coat, scales flashing. Instinctively Ronan swung a metal rod, hitting the door brace. The creature outside recoiled, giving him precious seconds. He jammed the rope across the floor, tripping it just as it lunged again. The barn shuddered, but held. Ronan's mind raced. These were not ordinary animals. Not ordinary dragons. They moved like predators from another world, precise and intelligent. And the small dragon child, it seemed to understand him, to be aware of its surroundings, reacting to threats faster than any human could. It was a strange, extraordinary life, and he was its only protector. He crouched, whispering to it, "We'll make it. We just have to hold a little longer." The creature chirped softly, pressing its head to his chest. Its warmth gave him strength. He was just a human, but he could outthink, outlast, outmaneuver. That was what humans did. That was what he had always done. A sudden gust slammed the barn door open. Water poured inside. A huge, shadowy wing blocked the lantern's light. Ronan tumbled backward, holding the dragon child close. Outside, the hunter's glowing eyes locked on them. The creature hissed fiercely, a flash of energy scattering sparks in the air. Ronan realized, its scales could emit something, maybe to defend itself, maybe to warn. Whatever it was, he needed to protect it now more than ever. The wind carried another sound, a low hum, mechanical and alive. Ronan's stomach turned. This storm was not the only danger. The hunters outside were organized, intelligent. They were searching. And they would not leave until they found the dragon child. Lightning struck again, closer this time, and in its flash Ronan saw the creature's scales shimmer like a map of glowing symbols. His pulse raced. What was it showing him? Were these warnings, signals, something else entirely? There was no time to figure it out. Every second the barn became more perilous, every gust a threat, every shadow a predator. Ronan gritted his teeth. He adjusted the creature in his arms, ready to move if he had to, ready to fight if he must. He was just a farmer. He had no army, no weapons. But he had courage, intelligence, and determination. And that had to be enough. Then a sound split the storm, a sharp, resonant crack, unlike thunder, closer, deeper. The barn shivered, the lantern swung violently, and the dragon child stiffened, its scales glowing brighter than ever. Ronan froze. Whatever it was, it had arrived at the edge of the barn. And it was watching them. He swallowed, holding his breath. The next move, by him or by them, would decide everything. Ronan held his breath, heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst. The storm had not slowed, but the wind and rain were no longer the loudest threats. At the edge of the barn, a massive shadow crouched, impossible to fully see in the flashes of lightning. Its eyes, two glowing amber slits, stared straight at him, unwavering. The dragon child in his arms stiffened, emitting a low, vibrating hum that resonated through the barn. Then the impossible happened. A pulse of light shot from the creature's forehead, not bright like lightning but sharp and controlled. It created a flickering force field around the barn, shimmering like heat over a summer road. The hunters outside froze. One backed off, wings folding slightly. Another hissed, scanning for a way around. Ronan felt a surge of awe and fear. The child was powerful, far more than he had imagined. He crouched lower, keeping the dragon close. "I don't know what you are," he whispered, "but I'm not letting anyone take you." The creature chirped softly, almost as if it understood him. A strange bond had formed in minutes, one forged under fear, desperation, and trust. Ronan's eyes darted to the barn floor, where a shard of metal poked out from the wet hay. He had not noticed it before, it hummed faintly under the dragon child's pulse. Kneeling, he touched it. Immediately, a thin ribbon of light stretched upward, forming shapes that shimmered and shifted. It was a map, a star map, alien and intricate. Lines connected unknown worlds, symbols glowing faintly along the paths. A warning appeared, dragon species targeted, protect or destroy. Ronan's stomach twisted. The dragon child wasn't just lost, it was being hunted. He was holding the last hope of an entire species, perhaps even a civilization. He swallowed hard, letting the weight settle in. The storm outside was dangerous, but what he now faced was far bigger. Organized hunters, intelligent and lethal, seeking this small creature. Another pulse from the dragon child lit the barn in blue-white flashes. Symbols rippled across its scales, almost like a warning. Ronan realized it was communicating, trying to tell him something about the approaching threat. He leaned in, whispering, "I get it. I'll follow your lead." The first hunter slammed against the barn wall. Wood groaned and splintered. Ronan reacted instinctively, tossing another hay bale into the gap. Sparks flew as it struck metal scales. The creature outside recoiled, but the pulse of light from the dragon child intensified, forcing it to retreat. Ronan took a deep breath, adrenaline sharpening his thoughts. He had to be clever. Brute force would get them both killed. He scanned the barn. Old barrels, rope, lanterns, and the storm itself were all tools. He tied the dragon child carefully against his chest with a piece of rope, keeping its head free but secured. Then he grabbed an empty lantern, unscrewed the base, and wedged it into a gap in the doorway. If the barn door gave way, the creature outside would be greeted with sudden fire. He used the wet hay as insulation, careful not to harm the dragon child. Another hunter circled, scanning, wings whipping rain and mud. Ronan ducked behind a stack of crates, breathing heavily. He could feel the dragon child's scales pulsing against his chest, guiding him in some strange, instinctive way. It was as if the creature knew the hunters better than he did. He trusted it, and that trust gave him courage. Humans relied on ingenuity, adaptability, and determination. He would prove it now. The second hunter lunged at a boarded-up window. Ronan yanked a rope, causing a heavy beam to fall, narrowly missing it but creating a loud crash. The creature outside hissed in frustration. A small payoff. He had delayed it, had taken the initiative, and had survived. But there was no time to celebrate. Then the dragon child did something he didn't expect. It chirped, low and commanding, and another pulse of energy flared from its forehead. The symbols on its scales shifted and formed patterns. Ronan realized, this pulse wasn't just defensive. It was a warning, a signal. He followed its rhythm and watched. Faint ripples appeared across the barn floor, connecting with the metallic shard. A map? A guide. Suddenly, he understood. The creature was trying to teach him, to show him how to protect it. Ronan's mind raced. He had seconds to decide. He could stay, risking the barn's collapse under the hunter's assault, or he could move the creature to a safer location, following whatever path the pulses indicated. He chose action. Carefully, he shifted, feeling the dragon child respond, almost leading him with its tiny but strong body. Outside, the hunters made another charge. The barn shook violently. Ronan lunged for the back door, yanking it open just enough to slip into the mud outside. The wind tore at his coat, rain stung his eyes, but the dragon child clung to him. They moved as one, a human and a being far beyond human understanding, into the unknown night. Lightning flashed, illuminating the valley. More shadows appeared in the distance. The hunters were regrouping, smarter than he had anticipated, ready to strike again. But Ronan didn't stop. He had survived worse storms. He had faced impossible odds before. And now, with this strange creature guiding him, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. The dragon child's scales pulsed one last time as if approving his choice. Then suddenly, a massive silhouette loomed over the valley, blocking the lightning. Not a hunter. Something else, something larger, moving faster than anything Ronan had ever seen. He froze. The pulses from the dragon child intensified, warning him, danger, but also possibility. Whatever this was, the night was far from over. And Ronan realized the storm outside was nothing compared to the storm that was coming. Ronan's lungs burned from running through mud and rain, clutching the dragon child tightly. Its scales glowed with a pulsing blue light, warning him, guiding him, almost communicating. He could feel its heartbeat against his chest, fast, frantic, and alive. Behind him, the alien hunters circled like wolves, massive shadows slicing through the storm, their glowing eyes never leaving him. The wind tore at his coat, rain stung his eyes, and lightning struck nearby, illuminating a valley transformed into chaos. He reached the edge of a ridge, overlooking the river that cut through the valley. His mind raced. There was no way he could outrun all of them. He had no weapons, only the barn tools and his ingenuity. But humans survived impossible odds because they thought, adapted, and acted. That was his advantage. That and courage. A massive shadow dropped onto the ridge ahead of him. Ronan froze. The unknown entity from earlier, the enormous figure he had glimpsed, landed in the mud, wings folded partially, eyes glowing like molten gold. It was not one of the hunters. Its presence was immense, almost regal, and yet there was something wary watching. The dragon child squirmed in his arms, claws gripping his coat, scales pulsing in urgent flashes. Ronan realized, this creature might be a protector, or an even greater threat. He tightened his grip, whispering, "We stay alive. We survive. We don't give up." The dragon child responded with a sharp chirp, and the force of its pulse rippled across the ridge, shaking loose stones and making the hunters hesitate. The hunters roared in frustration, circling closer, their metal-tipped wings slicing the storm. One launched itself toward him, claws extended, faster than human eyes could track. Ronan ducked instinctively, rolling into the mud, barely avoiding a strike. He used the moment to grab a fallen branch and swing it at a protruding rock. It tumbled down the slope, hitting another hunter, causing it to stumble. A small victory, but the danger was far from over. Lightning flashed again. Ronan's eyes caught movement near the riverbank, logs, rocks, and mud sliding, creating a natural barricade. He didn't hesitate. He ran toward it, dragging the dragon child with him, his boots sinking into the mud, rain soaking him to the bone. The hunters followed, wings beating, claws scraping, their coordination terrifyingly precise. He reached the riverbank and scanned for options. The river was swollen from the storm, fast and dangerous. But it could also be a weapon. He spotted a series of fallen trees and broken branches forming a crude bridge. If he could lure the hunters onto it, maybe their weight and momentum could slow them, or trap them. It was risky, but he had no choice. He took a deep breath. "Follow my lead," he whispered to the dragon child. Its scales glowed, responding as if acknowledging the plan. Ronan sprinted across the bridge, heart pounding, eyes forward. One hunter lunged, but the dragon child pulsed again, sending a wave of energy that cracked the wet wood, making the creature lose footing momentarily. Ronan didn't stop. He leapt from the last log onto solid ground on the other side, landing hard but intact. The hunters didn't follow immediately. The bridge groaned and splintered under the weight of the first one, collapsing partially into the river. Water sprayed everywhere, creating chaos and confusion. Another hunter roared and circled back, regrouping, but the delay gave Ronan precious seconds. He ran uphill toward a rocky outcrop. The dragon child's glow pulsed faster now, almost like it was cheering him on. Ronan ducked behind boulders, dragging the creature into cover. He knew this ridge well. He had farmed these lands his entire life. Every slope, every rock, every hidden dip was familiar. Humans might not be as strong as these hunters, but they were clever. And cleverness could turn the tide. The hunters began their descent, but Ronan had prepared. He rolled a boulder down the slope, smashing into the lead hunter, sending it staggering. Another fell into the river, struggling against the current. The dragon child pulsed again, a wave of energy rippling outward, scattering sparks across the mud and rain. The hunters hissed, wings beating frantically, but hesitation had set in. Ronan felt a surge of triumph. They were powerful, relentless, almost invincible, but they underestimated human cunning, human persistence, human determination. And he had something they didn't. A bond with this extraordinary creature, a bond forged under storm, fear, and trust. Then came the roar. Louder than any thunder, deeper than any lightning strike. The enormous figure from earlier rose above the ridge, wings unfurling, scales flashing like molten metal in the stormlight. It swooped toward the hunters with precise, devastating speed, scattering them into retreat. Ronan ducked instinctively, mud and rain lashing his face. He barely recognized the shape, but he understood. This being had intervened. The dragon child chirped with relief, scales glowing steadily now. Ronan sank to his knees, holding the dragon child close. His chest heaved with exhaustion and adrenaline. They had survived. He had used his wits, courage, and connection with this strange creature to turn the impossible into reality. Humans were fragile but resilient. Humans could adapt, outthink, and endure. And humans could protect life when it mattered most. Lightning struck once more, illuminating the valley. The hunters were retreating, regrouping somewhere beyond sight. The enormous creature hovered above the ridge, watching Ronan with unblinking eyes. The dragon child pressed against him, small claws curling into his coat, golden eyes reflecting a bond stronger than words. Ronan whispered almost to himself, "We made it, for now." But even as he spoke, a faint hum rose from the metallic shard tucked safely near the dragon child. It pulsed faintly, showing symbols Ronan didn't fully understand, hinting at far larger dangers beyond this storm. The human had won this battle, but the war, the story of the dragon child, the hunters, and the vast alien world they belonged to, was far from over. And above them, in the swirling storm clouds, lightning seemed to carve shapes into the sky. Shapes that looked like cities, ships, and eyes, reminding Ronan that their survival was just the beginning. The storm had finally passed. Dawn painted the valley in pale gold and silver, streaks of sunlight glinting off the wet mud and shattered branches. Ronan sat on a large rock, chest heaving, rain still dripping from his soaked coat. The dragon child nestled against him, scales now soft and warm, no longer flashing in panic. Its tiny body radiated life, resilience, and trust. Ronan's hands trembled slightly as he stroked its head. He had never held anything so fragile, yet so extraordinary. He looked across the valley, expecting to see the alien hunters returning. But the mud was silent. Only faint tracks marred the landscape, signs of retreat. The massive creature from last night had vanished into the mist, leaving only the dragon child and him. Relief washed over him, but so did awe. The events of the night were beyond comprehension. He had survived the impossible, protected a being far beyond ordinary life, and discovered a world he never knew existed. Ronan adjusted the dragon child in his arms. "You're safe," he whispered. Its golden eyes blinked slowly, and it made a soft chirping sound that almost felt like gratitude. He realized then that the bond between them was real, more than instinct or need. It was trust, respect, and something human, a connection that transcended species. The metallic shard tucked beside the dragon child hummed softly. Ronan picked it up, brushing off mud and rain. The star map it projected last night shimmered faintly in the morning light. He traced a finger over the glowing lines, realizing that the dragon child's survival wasn't just about the storm or the hunters. It was part of a much larger story, one that spanned worlds he had never imagined. He took a deep breath and stood. His legs were stiff, muscles aching, but his mind was sharp. The dragon child chirped again, almost impatiently as if urging him forward. Ronan scanned the horizon. The valley was quiet, but faint shapes in the distance hinted at more to come. Something larger than last night, something he could not yet comprehend. The shard pulsed gently in response, almost like a heartbeat, syncing with the dragon child's glowing scales. Ronan realized the truth of it. The creature had chosen him not just for shelter from the storm, but because humans could act where others could not. His courage, his intelligence, and his determination had mattered. Humans were fragile, yes, but capable of extraordinary things when they refused to give up. He had protected life that no one else could, and in doing so he had stepped into a story far beyond the farm he had known all his life. The dragon child stirred, stretching tiny wings that sparkled in the morning light. Ronan laughed softly, a sound mingled with exhaustion and joy. He had survived, the creature had survived, and somehow, against impossible odds, they had triumphed together. It was a small victory, but it felt immense. Every scar of the storm, every beat of fear and adrenaline had led to this moment. Yet the valley held secrets. Far across the fields, shadows moved, faint shapes glimmering in the early light, watching. Ronan's heart tightened. The alien hunters might have retreated, but the shard's gentle pulse reminded him that the true danger was far from over. The dragon child wasn't just a survivor, it was a key to something much larger. And now humans had a role in that story. He knelt again, placing the dragon child gently on a soft patch of grass. "We made it through the storm," he said softly. The creature chirped, nudging his hand. Ronan smiled, realizing that trust had been forged in the hardest crucible imaginable: fear, danger, and shared survival. Humans might not have had wings, claws, or alien strength, but they had courage, empathy, and determination. And sometimes, that was enough to protect the extraordinary. Ronan looked at the metallic shard again. Its glow pulsed gently, the star map still visible. He traced one of the glowing lines with his finger, realizing it connected to distant worlds, unknown civilizations, and threats beyond human imagining. The dragon child chirped, almost impatiently as if urging him forward. He nodded. He understood now. Protecting the dragon child was not the end, it was the beginning. The shard, the creatures, the hunters, they were all part of a larger puzzle. And humans, fragile but clever, could play a role. He felt a surge of pride and purpose. He was a farmer, yes, but also a protector, a guide, a human standing against impossible odds. Above them, the morning sun broke through the clouds, illuminating distant ridges and forests. Faint shapes flickered at the horizon, ships, creatures, or signals of a far larger world watching them. Ronan's grip on the dragon child tightened slightly, not with fear but with determination. He would protect this life. He would face whatever came next. Humans did not give up. Humans endured. Humans rose to meet challenges that seemed insurmountable. The dragon child chirped again, hopping lightly onto Ronan's shoulder, scales glimmering in the sun. The shard pulsed once more, as if acknowledging that the human had passed the first test. But the pulse hinted at more: challenges, mysteries, and dangers still waiting. Ronan's jaw tightened. Whatever came next, he would meet it with courage, intelligence, and heart. He turned, looking back at the valley. The storm had passed, but the world had changed. The hunters had retreated, the dragon child had survived, and humans had proven their worth. Yet the shard's glow whispered of new adventures, new threats, and worlds beyond his imagining. Ronan's eyes met the dragon child's golden gaze. "We're not done," he said softly. The creature chirped once, a tiny, fierce note of agreement. Humans might be fragile, but together, with courage and determination, they could face the impossible. The shard pulsed gently again, faint shapes shimmering in its glow. Ronan's heart raced. Somewhere, far beyond the valley, a new story waited. A story that humans would not just witness but shape. And in that moment, he knew the adventure had only just begun.